Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing yet another what I read this month. November is here, which is insane. Why are you mowing your lawn, sir? If you can hear the lawnmower, please ignore it. November is here, which is really scary, but it's almost Christmas time. Well, it kind of is Christmas time. My entire For You page is Christmas. I actually read 11 books this month, which is much more than the past like 5 months or something. This is like much more than I've recently read. So the first book that I read this month was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I did say Poston, but then I heard everyone saying Poston, so Poston? I gave this book a 4 stars. I thought it was a really good romance. So this book is about a girl. She works at like this publishing thing and she's a ghostwriter, but she can also see ghosts. So it's like really fun. And she gets this new boss. She ends up having to go back to her town because something tragic happened within her family. At her hometown, she ends up seeing a ghost, and the ghost is like sort of connected to her, and the ghost ends up being her boss. It's a romance between the ghost and her. Go through a lot of grief because the thing that happened in her family is associated with grief. You also see very much insight in trying to come to terms with things. So it deals with a lot of other things besides romance, but the romance in it was so good. I really enjoyed the banter between the two characters. I thought it was really interesting, and they also had very deep thoughts and talks as well. So I really enjoyed it. It was such a good book. This is a book that I DNF'd like almost a year ago, but I picked it back up and I'm so glad I did because I really enjoyed it. Then I picked up a thriller, which was The Housemaid's Secret by Freida McFadden. It follows the same character, Millie. I don't really want to give too much about thrillers because I feel like it's fun to go into thrillers really blind. I gave this book like a 3.75. I didn't enjoy it as much as The Housemaid. I thought The Housemaid's plot twist was like really got me. I was shocked. This one, I feel like I could see it coming. I just felt like the person who did it, I expected it, obviously. And I feel like that's just because I've been reading more thrillers, so maybe I'm like knowing how to expect things. I would still recommend, because if you're looking to try and get out of a reading slump or just read a book really fast to meet like a reading goal, I would totally recommend Freida McFadden or any sort of thriller. They are so fast paced and you just want to keep reading. Every chapter leaves off on a cliffhanger and you just always want to find out what's happening next. I would especially recommend Freida McFadden because the writing is amazing and it flows very well. That was the second book. Then I ended up picking up Mile High by Liz Tomford. I have heard so much about this series from so many people on TikTok and on booktube, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get into it, and I did. And I gave this book a 4 stars. I really enjoyed this story between the two characters. This book follows Stevie and Xander's, and Stevie is a flight attendant and Xander's is a professional hockey player. He's sort of her boss because she's the flight attendant for his team's private jet. It's sort of a forbidden romance because obviously, since there's that sort of power dynamic and employment, they're not supposed to like mingle and have a relationship. I thought there were some parts of this book that were really cringy, and even coming out of this very handsome man who's like so thoughtful with the female main character, it was a little cringy. But I will say I related to the female main character on so many levels. Her struggles, her inner thoughts of what she thinks is happening and what she thinks people are perceiving her as is something that I relate to, and I really found myself looking at this character and being like, wow, that's me. Then I ended up reading the second book, which is The Right Move by Liz Tomford. And this book, guys, I think about this book so often. I absolutely love the characters in this book. This book follows Indy. She's also a flight attendant that worked with Stevie, and she's also Stevie's best friend. And the male main character is Ryan, who is Stevie's twin brother. So it is best friend's brother trope, which I really don't read very often, but I think I need some more recs. So if you guys have any recs for that, I would absolutely love to hear them. It made things so interesting. And it's also a forced proximity because Indy just got out of a really terrible situation, needs somewhere to live for cheap. Ryan lives alone. They end up being roommates together, and so it's forced proximity. It's so good. I gave this book a 5 stars because the characters and their connection was amazing. I absolutely loved Ryan Shea in this story. He is the perfect book boyfriend. Like, I will say it, he's one of the best book boyfriends I have ever read about. He is such a thoughtful character who does acts of service so well. Indy could say something one time and he'd be like, got it, I'm doing it. Like, he's already had it done. Like, he is that guy. Like, he's that girl. Like, he is that girl. Like, no one compares to Ryan Shea, and I will say it, like, I will scream it from the rooftops. Ryan Shea is my boyfriend. He's actually the father of my kids, so okay? Am I okay? But I absolutely loved this story, and I really loved Indy as well. She had so much depth to her character, and you saw her go through so many things. Their connection was amazing, and I just loved how strong each of their characters are and how they just built each other up. Please go read this. If you're gonna read any book in the Windy City series, read The Right Move. Then I ended up picking up the 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is her newest release, I'm pretty sure. I've seen really everyone and their mom read this on Book Talk and BookTube, and a lot of people say it's really good, and I really enjoyed it. I gave this book a 4.25. I loved this story. It was so amazing. It's about a girl, Clementine, who inherits her late aunt's apartment, and something about this apartment is that it's magical. Time travel's always 7 years. She meets this guy, Iwan, and she finds out that there's 7 years difference in time, and it's a romance between the two of them. And this book was so well written, and it had me from the beginning. I just wanted to know what was happening. I wanted to see how they were going to get out of this. I wanted to see the connection that they built up, and all of the characters were so charismatic. It was just amazing. The banter between the two characters was top notch. Figuring out how this relates to present time and how that's going to work out was always so interesting. Please go read this if you're looking for fun romance with also deeper aspects to it. The next book that I read was a new release, which was Hopeless by Elsie Silver. I've been looking forward to this book for so long. If there's one thing about me, it's that I love the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver. One of my favorite series of all time, dare I say. And I was super excited for this story because this followed byeeeeee, who was the mysterious, like funny, but like you knew he had a dark past to him. He was in the military and then something happened and he came back home. And so that's where we kind of started with this story. And then we have Bailey, who is the female main character in here. She's associated with her family, who is not seen in the best light in this town, and she's trying to get away from that image. This is an age gap story. I can't remember how many years they had between them. The age gap was done right. I will say it was not done in a way that made me uncomfortable. I gave this book a 4.25. All of the books in the Chestnut Spring series have been above a 4 stars, but this is the second to least favorite in the series. I felt like there was a part of book that I really wanted more elaboration on, and I wanted more like attention to it, and it didn't really give me that. It just felt like they sort of used this relationship and this love as a way of masking the progress that I thought was going to happen with Beau. I was really expecting more of his own self journey, so that kind of really tampered my reading experience. But needless to say, I really enjoyed the story. I especially loved Bailey. I think I honestly enjoyed Bailey in the story more than I enjoyed Beau. I thought I would get more depth from Beau, and I didn't really get that, so I was sort of disappointed in that. But Bailey was such a fun character. I felt like she was very, very strong, and she knew what she wanted. She knew what she desired in life and really stuck to it, and she wanted to do everything on her own. She wanted to be super independent and sort of break free from this image that the town has put on her because of her family, and I really respected that as a character for her. She really was like blunt, and I thought it added a lot of like funny moments into the story, which I really liked as well. Definitely not my favorite in the series, but I can appreciate that this was written in a way that I wanted to devour it, and I absolutely loved seeing Cade and Willa in the story. I ended up picking up Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I enjoyed this book. I gave it a 3.75. I just feel like I'm not going to really think about this book so often, so that's why I got like a 3.75. The story was really fast and developed and paced very well, and I thought that the male main character was so good. So this follows Russ. You sort of see an icebreaker. He's part of the hockey team. And Aurora, he's sort of a golden retriever boyfriend. He's very awkward. He's very shy. And I absolutely loved that. Like, I thought it was so cute and endearing of him. And Aurora's sort of this like firecracker. She like wants to break all the rules. Both of the characters had so much depth that I wasn't expecting. Like, we saw more of Sorry, I'm thinking about Henry. We saw more of Russ's family and his own issues, and we saw that sort of get resolved working through that, and I really loved that. And we also saw Aurora, who dealt with the issues in a different way, but it worked out good for her, and she did what she had to do, did what was best for her in that situation, and I really enjoyed that. I know a lot of people like no third act breakups, so I will say that this book does not have a third act breakup, and their communication is on top. Their communication's so good. I feel like Hannah Grace is just so good with the communications in her books with her characters, and these side characters were so good too. I ended up falling in love with Xander. So Xander, if you want to give me a call, if you want to have your own book written, like, I would be okay with that. He was so charming. Like, I loved him, and he was so funny. But Henry is getting a book next, so beware of me to act like a crazy person, because I love Henry. Then I ended up reading Caught Up by Liz Tomford, which is the third book in the Windy City series. I gave it a 4 stars. I thought that the male main character, Kai, was so good. I feel like Liz Tomford is so good at writing male main characters who have acts of service and just so in tune with the female characters, like what they want. I feel like they always just like no. And I like, when would we get men like that IRL? I don't know, but like I'm complaining. Kai is a professional baseball player. He's a single dad. He's sort of talked about like Clark Kent. So I was like, okay, so you're hot. So you're hot, you have glasses, you're hot, you're a single dad. Oh my God, I'm foaming at the mouth. Like that's how I was. Really cared about Miller, who is the female main character, Coach's daughter. It's also nanny trope because she is his son's nanny. So that's like crazy. And I really enjoyed it. I just felt like I wasn't the biggest fan of Miller because she sort of had this trait where it kind of disconnected me from the story because I knew it would result in a third act conflict that I wouldn't like and I would just be like annoyed at. So I wasn't the biggest fan of that, but I will say that their relationship was super endearing. Watching Kai and Miller with his son literally made me want to pop out children. That's like a crazy power that romance authors have, and I'm not into it. Like, can we stop with that power? Because I don't want to be popping out children. And then I ended up picking up a dark romance, which is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. I will say before I even start talking about it, please check the trigger warnings if you want to read this book. I feel like it's important because there's many triggering subjects in this book that I feel like we should be aware of and you should be aware of if you want to go into this. It's fine if you want to go into blind. I think some things might be triggering to you and you just want to keep your mental health good. I would recommend checking out the trigger warnings. I gave it 4 stars and I'm still like going back and forth on if it should be higher because sometimes randomly I think about this book. I just feel like so connected to these characters because we went through so much in this book. This book follows Cora. She ends up getting kidnapped with her sister's fiance, Dean, going through very traumatic events together and having to see things happen to each other, and it very much affects their relationships with people. It affects their relationship with each other, and I just thought it was a really deep story. It was so good, and the romance between the two characters was so strong, and we saw how their romance came to be. You saw how much they cared for each other and how like affected they were by each other and how much like it was hard to love each other, but they knew that they did. The way the title makes sense at the end of the story just makes me want to bawl. It makes me literally want to sob. So good. If you're looking for a dark romance, I would highly recommend this. Then I ended up picking The Sinner's Duet by Sophie Lark. I read the Brutal Birthright series and I really enjoyed that series. It's a mafia romance and it was so good. I loved Sophie Lark's writing and I still love Sophie Lark's writing in this. But honestly, I am going to give both of these books a 3 stars. I wasn't the biggest fan of this. I'm honestly gonna just group them together. I don't really have any separate thoughts. I just feel like I wasn't into the male main character at all. There were some points where he was very sweet to the female main character. You could tell how much they cared for each other and you just knew unconditionally that they loved each other. They would do anything for each other and I love that in books. Like, don't get me wrong, I love men who would do anything for her. But like, he pushed boundaries with the female main character to the point where I could not root for him. He was pushing boundaries in very intimate and vulnerable moments. I just wasn't here for that and I felt like it made me severely uncomfortable, some of the things that were going on in this book. Both of these books, honestly. It was very uncomfortable the way he spoke about her and the things that he did. I understand like it was written to prove a point of what she actually wanted and to get her real feelings out there, but there were better ways to do that than push boundaries when someone is saying, I know it's a dark romance, but I just would like respectful men when we have intimate, vulnerable moments. They were kind of a miss for me. It was really disappointing, but what can you do? You can't win them all. These are all the books that I read in October, all 11. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below if we had very similar books or similar thoughts. I will see you guys in the next one.